Alarms tore through the ship before I even finished my coffee. Red light spilled across the cockpit walls, and my hands froze over the console. 3 unknown vessels had dropped out of slip space around us, weapons already charged. I had never heard my own heartbeat this loud. My name is Ellen Voss, and I run a small courier company out of Ceres Station. I move cargo that other companies refuse to touch, quietly, quickly, without questions. That morning, my ship carried medical supplies bound for a colony that everyone else had forgotten. I had hired a new pilot for the job, a quiet man named Daniel Price, because he had a reputation for staying calm when things fell apart. I did not know yet how true that reputation was. Daniel sat beside me, both hands resting on the controls, his eyes fixed on the 3 ships closing in. He did not look afraid. He looked like a man remembering something he had hoped to forget. "Sit still," he said, his voice low and steady. "Whatever happens, do not touch anything." I wanted to argue, but the ship shook as a warning shot cut across our bow. My stomach dropped. I gripped the edge of my seat and watched Daniel's fingers move across the controls with a speed that did not match his calm expression. "They are pirates," he said. "They want the cargo, not us. If we power down, they will take everything and leave us drifting. If we run, we have maybe one chance." "Take the chance," I said, before I could stop myself. He nodded once, and the ship lurched forward. My body pressed back into the seat as the engines roared to life. Outside the window, stars streaked into long lines of light. The 3 vessels turned to follow, gaining speed, their weapons tracking our hull. Daniel guided us straight toward a field of broken rock and metal, remains of an old mining station that had been destroyed years ago. My breath caught in my throat. "That is not a way out," I said. "That is a wall." "It is cover," he said. "Trust me." I did not have a choice. The ship dove into the debris field, weaving between chunks of rock the size of houses. Metal groaned as we grazed past broken beams and shattered hull plating. Every second felt like it stretched into a full minute. I closed my eyes once, just once, and forced them open again, because I needed to see what was happening. Behind us, one of the pursuing ships clipped a large piece of debris and spun off course, tumbling away into the dark. Daniel did not celebrate. He kept his eyes forward, already planning the next move. "2 left," he said quietly, almost to himself. The remaining ships adjusted their path, cutting through the debris field with more caution now, but still gaining on us. My hands were shaking. I had never been this close to danger before. My job was supposed to be simple, quiet, safe. I built my company on staying invisible, and now I was trapped in the middle of open space, with 2 hostile ships chasing me through a graveyard of metal. "Why are you so calm?" I asked, my voice cracking. Daniel's jaw tightened. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke, his tone flat, like he was reading from a memory instead of speaking from the present. "I have done this before," he said. "A long time ago, on a world called Perimeter 9, we were surrounded for many months. I flew supply routes through a blockade because someone had to, and I was young enough to think I would survive anything." I stared at him, unsure what to say. The ship rattled as another warning shot passed close to our hull. "What happened?" I asked. "I survived," he said simply. "Not everyone did." There was no time to ask more. The 2 remaining ships broke formation, splitting to trap us from both sides. Daniel's hands moved faster now, adjusting thrust, cutting power to non-essential systems, redirecting energy to the shields. The lights inside the cabin dimmed as the ship drew everything it had into staying alive. "Hold on," he said. "This next part will not feel good." Before I could ask what he meant, he cut the engines completely. The ship went silent, drifting forward on pure momentum, sliding directly between the 2 hostile vessels. For one terrifying second, I thought we would collide with both of them at once. Then Daniel fired a short burst from our maneuvering thrusters, and the ship spun sideways, slipping through the narrow gap between the 2 pirates with only meters to spare. My scream caught in my throat as metal screeched somewhere along our hull, a glancing scrape rather than a full impact. Warning lights flashed across the console, but we were still moving, still intact. "Behind us," Daniel said. "They will need a moment to turn around. That is our window." He reignited the engines, and the ship shot forward, breaking free of the debris field into open space. I turned to look through the rear window and saw the two pirate ships struggling to reposition, their turns wide and clumsy compared to Daniel's precise movements. "We are not out yet," he said. "They will catch up unless we do something they do not expect." "What do you mean?" I asked. Instead of answering, he pulled up a display showing our cargo hold. A small section near the rear of the ship held old coolant canisters, meant for emergency repairs. Daniel began venting them into space, creating a wide cloud of gas behind us that shimmered under the distant starlight. "It will look like a reactor leak," he explained. "They will either chase it out of caution or slow down to investigate. Either way, it buys us time." The plan worked better than I expected. The two ships slowed as they approached the gas cloud, their sensors likely confused by the false reading. Daniel used the moment to push our engines harder, angling us toward a nearby trade route where other ships would be present, making an attack far riskier for pirates who valued their own safety over easy profit. Minutes passed in tense silence. I watched the rear display, waiting for the ships to resume their chase. They never did. Eventually, the two vessels turned away entirely, vanishing back into the depths of space, likely searching for an easier target elsewhere. I let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. My hands were still trembling, but the immediate danger had passed. Daniel eased back in his seat, his shoulders finally relaxing, though his eyes still carried a distant weight. "You saved us," I said. "Saved the cargo too. Those people on the colony will get their supplies now." He nodded, but did not smile. "That is the job." I studied him for a long moment. Beneath his quiet exterior, something older lived, something shaped by hardship I could barely imagine. I thought about the file the recruiter had given me, which mentioned nothing beyond his flight record. No details about Perimeter 9, no mention of a war that had clearly changed him. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He glanced at me, waiting. "How many pilots started with you back then?" His hands tightened slightly on the controls. 11, he said. "I am the only one who came home." The weight of those words settled over the cabin. I did not know how to respond, so I simply reached over and placed my hand briefly on his shoulder. He did not pull away, though he did not lean into the gesture either. It was enough, for now, that he knew someone had heard him. We flew the rest of the journey in comfortable silence, broken only by the occasional exchange about our course or fuel levels. The tension from earlier slowly faded, replaced by a quiet respect that had not existed between us before. I had hired Daniel because he was skilled and did not ask questions. Now I understood that his skill came from a place of pain, forged through experiences that most people would never survive. When we finally reached the colony, the residents came out to meet us, grateful faces watching as we unloaded crates of medicine and supplies. Daniel stayed near the ship, avoiding the attention, though a few children ran up to thank him personally. He knelt down to speak with them, his voice gentle, nothing like the sharp focus he had shown during the chase. I watched from a distance, thinking about how easily I might have judged him wrong. A quiet pilot with steady hands and a calm voice, someone I assumed simply preferred solitude. Instead, I had found a man who carried the memory of a war few people remembered, someone who chose to keep flying not for money, but because it gave his hands something familiar to hold on to. Later that evening, as we prepared for the return trip, I asked him if he ever thought about stopping, about finding work that did not involve constant risk. He considered the question carefully before answering. "I think about it sometimes," he said, "but flying is the only thing that makes sense to me anymore. Out here, I know what to do. On the ground, everything feels uncertain." I nodded, understanding more than I expected to. Some people find peace in stillness. Others find it in motion, in purpose, in knowing their skills matter, even when the cost was steep. As we launched back toward Ceres Station, I looked over at Daniel, his hands steady on the controls once more, his eyes calm and focused on the stars ahead. I no longer saw him as simply a hired pilot. I saw someone who had lived through something unimaginable and still chose, every single day, to keep moving forward. I did not know what future missions would bring, or what other dangers we might face together, but I knew one thing with certainty. Whatever came next, I trusted Daniel to bring us home, Not because he was fearless, but because he understood exactly what survival required, and he carried that understanding with quiet, steady strength.